In this lesson, we'll work on creating bone systems for our IK and FK legs. Let's get started by first taking a look at the width and height of each bone. You can see here that width and height is about a value of 3. So when we go ahead and clone the other bone objects we'll use for our IK and FK legs, we want to make sure to increase this value just slightly so we can work between each system faster. Alright, so let's go through and select the thighs. We're selecting the original thighs, so we want to be careful not to select the counter twist object. And we'll also grab the shins, and we'll press Ctrl V, and we'll clone these as copies. Alright, now, let's say we go ahead and head over to our listener window. Let's work on increasing the size of each bone, and we'll go ahead and use a few lines of code to have this happen. That's going to be $.width, and we'll have that equal to about 3.5, something a little bit larger. Let's make sure that width is spelled properly so that this will work. Alright, great. So we'll go ahead and hit enter. There's the width down. Let's go ahead and take care of the height next. So it's going to be $.height. And again, that will be equal to 3.5. Great, so let's go ahead and use this chain as our FK chain. So that means is we'll want to go through and rename each of these objects with a suffix of FK instead of main. Alright, so I'll just go ahead and do that for a few of these. So you have the process down, really simple. We'll just go through and change that name of main to FK01. Let's do the same thing for the next few objects. I'll pause the video. Alright, each FK bone has been renamed with the correct suffix, so we're ready to now clone these set of bones and use these as our IK bones. So we'll go ahead and go through and select our bone objects yet again. Alright, and with these all selected, we'll press Ctrl V, clone as copies. I'd like to point out that if you went ahead and selected the original bones, that's just fine. You can select those, or you can select the FK bones. It's not a big deal at all because we're going to change the size either way of our selected objects. So with them all selected, let's go ahead and move back to our script editor. And instead of 3.5, let's go ahead and work with a value of 4. Okay, great. So we should have the IK system now in place. Let's go ahead and spend the time renaming these objects. And again, I'll pause the video. Alright, so now that we have these bone objects in place, it'd be a good idea to create nubs, especially for our IK system. The reason why we didn't clone the nubs to begin with is because they kind of skew when we start to adjust their width and height after the fact. So might as well go ahead and create them now so we can avoid that skewing problem. So let's go to our FK shin. We'll alt-right click and grab our bone tools and we'll create an end. There we go. We'll now go to the IK shin and do the same thing. We'll create an end. For the name of these objects, we'll go ahead and work with the same naming convention. So for the FK, we'll go ahead and grab the name of the shin, just copy that, go to its nub, paste, and that's going to be L ankle FK. Alright, so for the IK, of course, we'll simply go ahead and paste the name in here, and that's going to be L ankle IK. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the right side. I'll pause the video. Alright, so now that the nubs are in place, let's go ahead and make this a little bit easier on us by recoloring our IK and FK chains. So let's say for our IK chains we can work with a color of red, and our FK chains we'll use yellow. So I'll go ahead and find the IK chain, we'll go ahead and grab the thigh, we'll double click to select the entire hierarchy, and using our bone tools we'll go ahead and find gradient coloring. We don't necessarily have to use a gradient at all, so I'll just go ahead and stick with red for the start and end color. There's one, and there's 2, which is okay, and choose apply gradient. All right, perfect. So that's a lot easier to see and work with. Let's do the same thing for our FK chain. I'll go ahead and double click to grab the entire chain. And again, we'll work with yellow. Just something bright that's really easy to use. So there's one. Go ahead and do the same thing for the end color and apply the gradient. Perfect. So I'll go ahead and leave the right side up to you. Let's take care of that. I'll pause the video. Okay, so by coloring our bone objects, this is going to make it a lot easier for us to apply our constraints, which we are about to work on right now. We don't need to constrain the nubs. That would be pointless. We just need to constrain the bones that are going to drive our main systems. All right, so let's go ahead and go through and start our constraining. Now let's go ahead and talk about this. Which one should we constrain first? What I'd like to do is make sure that when we turn on our active switch or our IK button, that weight would be set to 1 and FK would be off at that point. So again, once we click on that button, that means we're going to be in IK mode. So we should go ahead and constrain the IK system first and then the FK last. All right, so let's go ahead and grab the thigh, the main thigh that is. We can alt right click and grab our orientation constraint. From there, we're going to want to tie that to the IK thigh. Beautiful. So once that's been connected, if we were to go to our motion panel, take a look at our rotation list and scroll down, there's the orientation constraint. Notice we can add another target this way. So we could always choose add orientation target and now select the FK bone. All right, so that's what we'll want to do for the others. Again, we'll just go in, we select the main shin in this case. Let me go ahead and turn off add orientation target. So with the shin selected, we'll alt right click and grab the orientation constraint and tie that to the IK chain first. All right, so from there, you can either go back and use this little button here to tie the FK chain so that the weight is now added to this list. Or if you wanted to, with the main shin still selected, you could always alt right click and reapply the constraint. You could see it's going to be added either way. But let's make sure to do that in that very order. So let's take care of the right side again. IK first, FK last. All right, so once this is finished, if we were to go in and grab, let's say, the IK chain, let's go ahead and grab the IK thigh. If we were to go in and start to rotate this, we should now notice blending between that object and the FK chain. Notice how the main chain does not follow precisely. Now you can see as we rotate, we're getting this weird rotation. That's simply because I'm rotating from the center. Sometimes that happens where this kind of switches, depending on what we're setting up here on our rig. But either way, if we were to set this back to pivot point center and go ahead and start to rotate the thigh, now we're getting the results we'd expect. All right, beautiful. So you can see how the FK is staying put, but if we were to go ahead and grab that FK thigh and start to rotate that, notice the blending. Very nice. All right, so I'll go ahead and undo back. You'll want to check that for the other thigh bone, as well as for the shins, just to make sure that your constraints have been set up correctly. And now to finish this lesson, we'll go ahead and tie IK goals to the IK systems, and we'll also check our layers. So let's do that. We'll go ahead and grab the IK thigh. We can now alt right click and grab our history independent solver, and let's tie that to the IK nub. Let's go ahead and rename this goal object to high IK underscore L underscore leg 01. All right. From there, what I'd like to do is just go ahead and freeze its transformations down. So in case we start to test things out with this control, we could always go ahead and alt right click and use transform to 0 to bring it back. So let's do the same thing for the right side. Again, we'll grab our IK thigh, alt right click, grab our IK tool, and tie that to its nub. Let's go ahead and rename the IK goal to high IK underscore R leg 01. All right, remember we want to go ahead and freeze the goal. And let's go ahead and make sure that these are stored in their layers. So I'll go ahead and add this to the hidden layer. Great. Now, as far as where to link these IK goal objects, as of right now, we can actually have them linked to our global node. So we can go ahead and grab our link tool. Just go ahead and drag them over to be linked to our global control object. If we were to go ahead and right-click, or Alt-right-click that is, and choose Transform to 0, you can see that nothing's going to shift because that 0 position has already been established and the global control object is not offset from the origin. So again, there's nothing that will cause these IK goal objects to shift when we choose Transform to 0, since we've already frozen them in their current state. All right, fantastic. So let's go ahead and check our layers. We'll go to the hidden layer, go ahead and hide that, and it looks like everything except for our nubs will need to be added to those layers. Let's go ahead and select our nub objects, or we need to make sure those nubs are added to our hidden layer, so we'll go ahead and take care of that. And looks like everything else is fine. Beautiful. So I'll go ahead and bring the hidden layer back, and we will stop the lesson here. In the next lesson, we will work on switching between IK and FK.